The only way to never fail is to never try. And since failure is something that is going to happen to all of us sooner or later, it's very important that we understand how to deal with it properly so that we can continue towards our goal instead of having the ultimate failure, which is giving up. Because you see, for most of us, the way that we actually deal with failure is not after it has happened. It's actually before it even starts. This is why some people resign from life and stop trying at all, because they're already anticipating and expecting failure. And this is absolutely the biggest reason that we need to know how to overcome the fear of failure. Your mindset is what will be the massive difference between you fearing failure or actually thriving on it. And to understand how to overcome the fear of failure, we must first understand where it really comes from. By explaining that to you, you'll already see how to overcome it quite easily. Your fear of failure comes from the consequences that failure holds in your mind. When you fail, what will really happen? I mean, the assumption is that when we fail at our jobs, or fail in our marriage, or fail at life in general, we will become extremely unhappy. Our lives are over and done with, and nothing is going to go well anymore. Which is not all wrong, but mostly. Of course, you might be a little bit less happy when big sources of joy and fulfillment in your life, such as your marriage or your job or your favorite hobby, go away. You will have to change a lot about your life, and the time might not be easy. That part is true. But does that mean that your life is over? That you can never be happy again? Or that you have no positive outlook on life going forward anymore? Of course not. Ask yourself, what will really happen when you fail? Don't just stop at the first thought, but instead paint yourself a very detailed picture. Make this a very analytical and emotionless process, and you will realize that most of your fear comes from your emotions rather than any logical reasoning. Let's take the example that your marriage or relationship ends in a catastrophic fight and you end up hating one another. Ignoring the emotions for now, what are the actual facts of what will happen? Maybe you would end up splitting you and your fiance's house, at worst causing you either to reduce your standard of living or to make more money, both of which are in your control. You will have to get used to living alone, something that only takes time and doesn't make you any less valuable. If you've been relying on this person as your source of love, you might have to learn to actually love yourself. Or maybe you may want to start a new relationship. So, in the end, it is all something that is in your control to change. The worst thing that can actually happen is that you're not quite as happy as you were, which you can still change whenever you choose. But when your emotions come in, you over-dramatize every little detail. The same thing happens with every fear of failure. In the end, if you really map it out, it is not nearly as bad as you think it might be. Now that being said, just for the sake of it, let's take a look at what the absolute worst outcome could be. Your partner takes all of your wealth, leaving you broke on the street. Your children start hating you and never speak to you again. You never find true love again. You are so depressed every single day is a struggle to get up. Now look at that and tell me if you can figure out how to get out of each of these slumps. Can you find a way to solve each of these dilemmas? Or if I was having these problems, what would you advise me to do? Just the fact that you have some idea of how to get out of the worst possible scenario means that anything a little bit better than this is going to be a breeze. Just realize that given the fact that you have no idea what will happen to you, you have a 50-50 chance of something good or bad to happen. The graph looks something like this, with an equal amount of possible amazing events and an equal amount of possible negative events. The worst possible event is just as likely to occur as the best possible event. Your thinking is so skewed that you think failure means you will end up on the negative end of the spectrum. You are only seeing half of the picture. I also want to mention that if you have no idea what the consequences may be, you can look at it, guesstimate, and hope it'll turn out better than you think. But in the end, it will probably be something completely different anyway. So let me ask you a question. If you have no idea what will happen, why do you choose to believe that something negative will happen? You see, at the end of the day, most of us will think about the worst case scenario. Most of us will project into the future, thinking about all the horrible things that could go wrong. We're afraid of failure. It's a natural tendency and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But if you can disconnect a little bit from your very, very biased point of view and your emotions that are grabbing control of you and just throwing you wherever they want you to go, and you can actually take a real look at what's going on, you'll have a much better idea of what's actually going to happen, what are the chances of failing, and you can disconnect from that emotional pain and frustration that you have projecting into the future. And the moment that you can go ahead and let go of that, your whole life will ease up. Everything that you're doing will become much simpler, because at the end of the day, how many times do worst case scenarios end up happening? And thinking about it, worrying about it, being afraid of it is not going to help it whatsoever. In fact, it'll only make matters worse. So through the act of being afraid of failure, you're actually leaning more towards the negative side of things happening, which means that you are expecting these things to happen, which means you'll have a filter and see most of the bad things that are happening, even if there are some great things that come with it. There's two sides to every coin, and for every failure, there's an opportunity, there's a success on the other side, there's something that is being taught to you through the experience. Now you can choose to continue to focus on the failure, I'm just a failure, or you can think about what good can come out of it. And when you switch your view that way, your experience of life is going to be better. And isn't that the point? Do you want to be happy and be fulfilled and actually enjoy your experience on this planet? Or do you want to walk around miserable thinking about all the worst case scenarios? I mean, it's your choice at the end of the day, but I choose to see the glass as half full. That doesn't mean that I was born this way. That doesn't mean that you'll naturally do that, but you can make yourself see the good. You can make yourself see the positive, and that way you're going to get a lot more of the positive. Go ahead and hit subscribe right now if you haven't already, and become a champion. Catch these videos fresh every week. And please share this video if you enjoyed it. It's the best way to support this channel and keep videos like this coming your way. And finally, go ahead and leave a comment below. Why are you afraid of failure? Are you afraid of failure? What kind of failure are you afraid of? And what are you going to do about it? I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. I read and reply to every single one.